what are some of the things that you've come across that you thought, you know what, maybe this is really kind of taking on a new life of its own when it comes to the discussion surrounding disclosure and people's consciousness going into this far-reaching topic?
Well, you can tell that a shift is happening. We've had a lot more people this year than we had last year. And we've got people coming in like Ross Coldhart, who's with News Nation and who's broken a lot of whistleblower stories. We've got new podcasters coming in. Chris Ramsey, Jesse Michaels, who I interrupted their conversation the other day, and they looked at me like I was an alien. It's a neat place for breaking boundaries, moving conversations, and taking the pulse of the community as far as both their ideas about what this phenomenon means, which is what I'm interested in, and then the how are we moving this forward into the public consciousness so that we can get some real change on our planet and as a society. And I'm interested in both of these things very much.
How do you think AI plays into this when it comes, because even since the last time you and I spoke, which was, I guess, about a year ago roughly, AI has advanced so much in a year. Mm-hmm. Do you see that being something that's part of the conversation when it comes to a higher intelligence that maybe they've already mastered and we're just starting to kind of scratch the surface on it?
So the great question that I heard this weekend about AI is it a discovery or an invention? Did we discover AI or did we invent it? The same question was asked of mathematics. You know, did we discover mathematics as baked into the net? Because why does it describe nature and reality so perfectly? And I think there's a bit of both, but I lean towards AI being a discovery, not an invention. Look, if we've got civilizations that are older and wiser than been here, hanging around on planet Earth for various reasons, then obviously all of our science and technology is a discovery. We didn't invent anything. We haven't invented quantum mechanics. We didn't invent general relativity. We venerate the people that make new discoveries, but you know, there's no statue of the guy who invented the wheel. And in alien societies, there's probably no statue for the guy who invented AI, right? We venerate people like Turing, who came up with the Turing test and changed the game and moved thinking forward as far as computation goes. And those things are great, but that's indicative of our young society. We haven't yet branched out to understand that all of these technical sort of aspirations that we have are contained within a larger technosphere, an alien technosphere that surrounds our planet. So there's nothing we can do or say that hasn't been done or said before. Quote, paraphrase John Lennon. And that's, you can times that by 10,000, a million, 10 million.
Yeah. A conversation I was having earlier with somebody, and it's kind of stuck in my head for the past couple of hours, was the idea, kind of like the Prometheus idea when it comes to the movie, you know, that there is some type of higher being that genetically modified our DNA. If that's the case, do you think that might be a case that's happened in the, you know, within human history? And if so, they probably used AI or some sort of it, right?
We've got consistent multiple reports of human-esque aliens, not just humanoid, which is troublesome enough to our Darwinian sort of structure of what we think of evolution is. You know, nothing like the humanoid form should ever arise again on any other planet. You and I should be the result of random evolution, which means that if we rewound the clock and played it all again, nothing like us should ever appear again. And yet here we have humanoid aliens. They're all human. This, you know, is one of the big hurdles that science has to wrap their mind around. People are starting to do it. Convergent evolution is now being accepted and studied and used as a possible, you know, you might be able to extrapolate that to the galaxy, that there's a kind of convergent evolution happening in the galaxy. So there's sort of two explanations that I can think of. Either it's there's human-esque, not fully human-esque aliens with head hair, fingernails,
right,
eyebrows, smile, emotions, smiling, crying, So that's odd. So either there's a convergent evolutionary factor, or we are the genetic offshoot of an older race. Both are mind-boggling. Carter apparently was told that we are the genetic creation of an older race, that we are tenants here, not owners. I think that really messed him up. As a guy who taught Sunday school and built houses for the poor,
right.
I could see that messing Carter up. But yeah, I think there's a lot more going on. What we can say is that there's a lot more going on that we're presently willing to look at.
That kind of brings me to a question about Congress. As an observer outside of DC, right? I mean, literally on the other side of the country, when you talk about the Hollywood scene, what is that to someone like yourself looking from kind of like a Hollywood perspective on what Congress is doing, and people like Anna Paulina Luna, Nancy Mace, and Scott Burleson, Eric Burleson, who kind of, had this transparency task force, and then they try to say, we're looking into all these things. They bring on David Grush. They want to have hearings. They want to go into SCIFs and interview witnesses. How does that play, just looking at it as an outside observer for someone like you?
I see where you're going with that question. Yes, it's performative. It's a show, absolutely, 100%, as is most of what Congress does. It's a show, unfortunately. We find multi-billion dollars of fraud, waste, and abuse, and yet Congress doesn't approve to trim the budget. There's definitely more for thee and none for thee thing going on.
Why do you think they would have such an outward interest in it? Why do you think they want to come out so much in front of the camera, so to speak, and say, hey, look, we really want to figure this stuff out?
Because they can't keep it in the basket much longer. The social media, the digital revolution, the interconnections between people. If someone in Kansas sees a UFO and films it on their phone, that suddenly millions of people around the world can see what this one person saw, and what used to be just a police report,
right,
that can be sort of read in some obscure book somewhere, is now available to everybody. So, and that and a whole lot of other evidentiary sort of threads are coming together to say these dudes are lying. So they're trying to get ahead of the narrative, and they're also trying to delay sort of getting serious about it for as long as possible. And that's the game we're seeing playing out, and I think we need the public's help. We need more and more people to demand, and to say, hey, you're not fooling me, and we need to see the real evidence, because that's what we need to see. We have the data. We need to get the data to the scientists. We need to make it acceptable for the scientists to look at the data, and that's just now becoming apparent with Avi Loeb.
Yeah.
And these cats are just now turning their head toward the light and being given permission to do it publicly. As a lot of scientists look at this stuff on their own time,
right?
But there's a social stigma that's still firmly in place, and we're slowly but surely we're breaking that down.
Yeah, exactly right. I mentioned Avi Loeb. I was just about to say, because I spoke to him last week or 2 weeks ago, and I asked him that question. Actually, I said, look, I really admire you for someone in your position as an astrophysicist at Harvard, to be able to take this question seriously and have the Galileo Project.
Pioneer.
It is, right. And I actually brought that up to him. I said, why doesn't, not to put anybody else down, but I said, why doesn't someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson take this seriously as well? And I mean, his words were that he thinks it's silly that they don't, at least from a national security perspective, if nothing else.
Gatekeepers, deGrasse Tyson, he's a gatekeeper.
Think so?
Carl Sagan was a gatekeeper.
Yeah.
Although I think Sagan actually privately, he knew more than Tyson does.
Yeah.
And there are reasons to choose to be gatekeepers, and those gatekeepers in Sagan's day had a function that you can argue was necessary to sort of hold the pillars of society in place. But this is a new world now. You know, the gatekeepers are getting in the way. We have to push them aside and get down to the truth.
Well, I could honestly talk to you for like the next hour, and maybe we'll schedule something else on the long form version of UAP in the future. But to get you out of here on this, I know you have a new book coming out, you're working on it. So I want to ask you about that. What can people look forward to with the new book?
A Human's Guide to Visiting Aliens.
I like that.
Yeah, I do too.
Nice.
So I'm finishing that.
I'm glad you like it too. That helps.
No, I was interested in something that I'm trying to push the conversation forward, but also give an entry level to folks who are interested in this phenomenon, but haven't, you know, they don't have the time to sort of go deep. You know, I think a lot of people are interested, but they just don't have time. So they have a surface level awareness.
Right.
They have the basic questions. You know, if they're real, why don't we know about it? You know, how could they get here? Why do they crash all the time? I want to take those questions and frame them in a way that people who are very experienced with the phenomenon will also get a kick out of it and take that conversation further. I think we're dealing with a non-local information system that's been installed around our planet. That's that installation process has been occurring over 80 years, and we are just now, our technology is just now awakening with AI, quantum computing, to expose this non-local alien information system that is installed around our planet now as a monitoring system, and it's always multifaceted, sort of, you know, like biology, nothing has just one function with these aliens, in my opinion. So I get into some fun stuff.
I love that. I can't wait to read it.
Thanks.
Look forward to it. Thomas Jane, thanks so much.
You bet.
Right here on UAP.